upside down wooden cross on top and a bunch of red spray painted upside down crosses all over. And you could tell the cross, I think, was burnt a little bit. And it wasn't, you know, crazy, super crazy. It was like, oh, this is new. You know, this wasn't out here a few days ago. And then I found this little doll. And as I kind of investigated that doll more, a little red scarlet snake actually came up and wrapped around her neck. And I picked up this, there it is. I picked up the scarlet snake, and which, you know, is kind of weird that there's a live snake, a red snake, on this doll. And I've caught a lot of snakes in my life, and that is the only one that was bleeding out of its anus. There was blood coming out of its beehole, which, you know, I don't know why, who knows what. It was a little weird to me. And then the night just kind of gets weirder from there. You see that the red lettering in the other clip, it was a big Latin saying, like 100-foot long pretty much, on the road. I drove over it. We later translated it to, turn around, run, hide, he is watching you. Go further into the complex and there's these big abandoned buildings. I go into the building, you know, still just python hunting, like, you know, who knows what these kids are doing out here. I thought it was strange, the Latin, your average kid just messing around don't know Latin sayings like that. And then I come to this big room where there's the big pentagram. In the middle of the pentagram, there is a three-legged plastic chair with a blood stain in the bottom of it, where you could tell something was killed, sacrificed, whatever. On each wall, there's 3 walls. On each wall, there's upside-down crosses, Latin sayings, and all kinds of stuff. As I'm kind of walking into the room, which, you know, I don't want to sound like a psycho or anything, but that doll from earlier grabbed my leg. I don't know if I kicked it, I didn't see it, or what, but that doll from the rock pile somewhere else, I don't know if it was another doll or what, I never seen that other doll. I kick it, it seemed like it grabbed me. It's that same doll from earlier. Same thing with the cross on its forehead, the one eye cocked over, the other eye messed up. And so, you know, it's very, very weird to me. It kind of like scared me.
So
right next,
it wasn't there and then it was there? So
I didn't notice it. I didn't notice
you
it.
didn't carry it over there?
No, I didn't touch it.
So was anybody else
No.
with you?
I had 2 guys with me that didn't even want to get out of the truck when they seen the first thing. They stayed in the truck.
So the same
They
doll
didn't
that
touch
you
him.
saw on the rock pile somehow made its way to where you were?
Yep. I don't know if it's a duplicate doll or what, but it's same.
Was there more than one of those dolls?
Only doll I seen. Only doll I seen. I'm not big on the whole supernatural thing, so me, I'm real doubtful of it in the first place. But to me, it was the same doll from earlier. I did not see it until...
You know your business better than anyone, right? So why not build an app to run it with Base 44? This finance app solves your business headaches, tracking invoices, managing clients, keeping payments in check, all in one place. Go to Base 44 and write your prompt, what your app should do, how it should look, and the problems it should solve. Base starts generating your app right in front of you. Invoice list, client profiles, payment tracking. It's like watching a team of developers, designers, and a business coach bring your idea to life. Now let's make it even better by adding features that fit exactly how you work. I'll add scan receipts, digitize them, and add to expenses. Now I can snap a photo and it's logged instantly. No more manual expense entry. Finally, let's add an expenses prediction dashboard that forecasts monthly and yearly costs. Now you've got an app tailored to your business needs, built around the way you work. Start with your idea. Base 44 does the rest.
Diabetes? It's complicated. It feels like if you aren't perfect, you aren't making progress. But progress doesn't mean changing your life in a day. Progress is drinking coffee like you like it, without an audience. It's turning charts and numbers into confident choices. And one little sensor on the back of your arm can help you live with diabetes on your terms. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor. This is progress. Try for free at freestylelibre.us.
It hit my foot. Right next to that doll, there is a saying on the ground that says, "The omen will follow," which to me was like the creepiest thing of the whole thing. Was like, you know, that if you interact with any of this spirit's gonna follow you. Which I'm Christian, I believe in God, and I wasn't worried. You know, I know the good Lord has my back. But very strange, right? Very strange. As we go through, there's all kind of different stuff. In one of the rooms, there's a sleeping bag with something inside of it. I don't think it was a body, anything like that. Police went out there, investigated it. I didn't investigate further past that. Something was inside the sleeping bag, and on the walls there was, looked like red spray paint, and it said, she was only 9, we gave her to the devil, like basically talking about sacrificing a child. And then you have this little girl's gown that's nailed to the wall with like a dark red stain on it.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
And what was the investigation? Did you follow up and find out what they found out?
I never heard anything from it. I'm assuming they never found much from it because I never heard anything from it.
Did they know it was human blood that was in the chair?
I don't know.
Or,
I don't know. I would like to think it's red spray paint, but I don't know. I don't know. For the sake of the story, who knows what it was.
Yeah.
So, you know, we continue on with the hunt. We end up starting to get out of there. The guys are like, dude, we want to go. We don't like this shit. I'm like, all right, you know, let's pack it up, let's go. So we start making our way out, and I see flashlights. I mean, there's one road in, one road out. There's a gate at the end of it. You can't drive a vehicle in, and I mean, we're miles out here. You have to drive miles to then walk miles, right? So I see this flashlight bouncing on the side of the road as I'm driving out. I'm like, who the fuck is this? No, I've never seen anyone out here in my life, ever. Getting closer to him. I have my pistol in my truck. I put my pistol on my lap, you know, just in case. As I'm getting closer, about to kind of pass the guy, the guy's like, Mike, it's my name. I'm definitely shooting this guy. Like, what the fuck, you know? And he's like, I love your Instagram. I was like, oh, shit.
Like you might find this hard to believe, but I never talked growing up. I was the kid in the corner, and like girls would form groups and talk about which guy they want to fuck, and I wouldn't even be. They're like, Dave's sitting right there, and they're like, he's not even on the fucking roster. And I'm like, so I go, wait, is this racist? Yeah, but what has it? How can I turn this around? What it did for me, the Asian superpower is, if you're not seen and you're not heard and we're seen as non-threatening, I can go anywhere. I can go anywhere and people open up to me. I've been to the Congo, I've been to third world countries, I've been to every fucking state in America. I might be the most American person. Like, I've been to every fucking state. I've hitchhiked from the time I was 15 to every fucking state, every country, and I've talked, and because, would a black guy be able to do that? Would a white guy be able to do that? When people see, oh, that guy's Chinese, he's like Jackie Chan, or he's, whatever they think, they don't think that I'm gonna do anything or say anything, or I'm gonna, pose any threat. So they just open up and they say the most, I don't know, like, when I started hitchhiking, people said, no one's gonna pick you up, right? Like, 60s, 70s, everyone hitchhiked, and then something weird happened in the 80s where, like, you're gonna get raped, kidnapped, murdered, you know? But I go, I don't think so. I think if I put my thumb out and ask for help, someone's gonna give it to me. And with that, I got to see the world for free. I got to go everywhere. And much like what happened was, I would sit shotgun and I'm getting these free rides, and two things would happen. Either the driver has a long drive and they want someone to talk to, or they want me to talk to them. And something would happen, and like, I'm in the car right now with a complete stranger. Anything could happen. And the first hour is always small talk. How long you been on the road? What would you do? You know, it's all that kind of stuff. Something switches when they know the ride's about, like, I'm about to get out or whatever. I'm never gonna see this guy. I'm never gonna see this guy. So now we've been talking about news, sports, and weather for an hour. Last 10 minutes, I fucked my sister when I was 12.
Whoa.
Everything comes out. So I've heard, think about how many rides I've hitchhiked.
How old was he? He was 12. How old was his sister?
I don't know. It's 8. I mean, everything. Drugs, incest. You know, I killed somebody. Like, murder.
A guy told
Murder confessions.
Really?
I've heard the most insane.
Hold one at a time. Murder confession.
I don't know. I shouldn't be telling.
You definitely should be.
A guy confessed to me that he was thinking of raping me when I stayed at his house.
Oh, Jesus. You
Like-
stayed at his house? You didn't just hitchhike, you hitch-housed?
I was in deep south. I was in the deep south. It was like I was trying to hitchhike from LA to New York City. I was with my friend Brian. Same thing. No one's gonna pick up two fucking dudes. And John Wayne picks us up, cowboy guy. What are we, 10-gallon hat, you know. Damn, you boys look, hot out there. Get in the car. And he's telling us about shrimp po' boys, and he works on a offshore oil rig, and it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and it's just 2 weeks off right now. So he's like, "Where are you guys headed?" And we're like, "We're just trying to get to New York." New York? What you want to go there for? A bunch of queers out there. I don't know. We want to check it out. You guys want to stay at my house tonight? Like, this guy looks like grandpa. Just cowboy boots, cowboy hat, just big gut. Like, he's a dude.
Right.
Yeah, I'm young. I'm 17 or 18 at this time. We get to his house in
One mistake can get your resume trashed. Get a mistake-free resume for your job search. Get instant fixes for mistakes and expert phrase and keyword suggestions critical to your job search. Make no mistakes in your job search. Try Resume Now today.
There's 8 billion people in the world, and 8 billion ways to see it. To shape it, bend it, brighten it, light it, turn it, expand it, make it the way you want it. Because with Firefly, the world is what you make it.
This is what I'm talking about. Tiny town in Louisiana. Deep South. Like, we get in his house, Die Hard movie collection, Rambo movie collection, shotguns, and
Lube.
just the dude, just a man's man. And he has and his part-time job is an anesthesiologist. That
Part-time anesthesiologist.
part-time and then part-time offshore oil rig. And I'm, this is summertime, deep south, covered with like grease and mosquitoes, living outside on the road, hitchhiking. He's like, "You guys want to take a shower?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah." I'm the first one in the shower. And then I come out, I got the towel wrapped on. He's like, he made us like a frozen pizza or something. And there's a protest on the television. It's San Fran. This is 1993 or 94. There's a protest of something with gay people in San Francisco, and they were protesting. And he's watching it. I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I'm queer. You never see me out there protesting." And I'm like, "Oh shit!" And then my friend Brian, who's covered in grease and dirt, he hasn't showered yet. And I'm like, "Oh shit!" And I started getting my clothes on. And it's one thing to be gay, and then it's one thing to be picked up by like a
big gay guy with a cowboy hat who takes you to his house.
So and here's the thing. I don't want to discourage people from hitchhiking. This is one.
For over 3 decades, one director has dominated the discussions of society's most insufferable community, film bros. After an opening statement like that, you might assume I belong to the opposing faction of self-aggrandizing snobs with heads so far up their own arse, they can scarcely see quality in anything not produced by some obscure international director before they were even born, who Tarantino has probably at some point ripped off. Personally, I've always been a huge fan of the writer-director, to the extent that I was there to sing him happy birthday in person on the night of his 60th, along with Jamie Foxx, Edgar Wright and a crowd of about 3,000 people at the London Palladium. Coming at the end of a 2-hour interview, surprise hosted by Wright, and a long reading from his semi-autobiographical book Cinema Speculation, the experience only further reinforced what his films mean to me, and, for better or worse, how entertaining he is to listen to.
I have to keep their dick hard. I have to keep them wanting to go back for more. They can't grab Buddy Buddy. They can't grab Buddy Buddy. That can't happen.
But that's happening at the moment. What is the weirdest or most interesting note or letting you've had from a fan?
Whether you appreciate his work, think he's a douchebag, or believe his films are gratuitously violent and exploitative, it would be difficult to deny that he's entirely changed the landscape of what filmmaking can be, and inspired a great many artists to follow their passion. With the supposed cancellation of his planned final feature, The Film Critic, and his focus now seeming to shift to the stage, the manner in which Tarantino's directing career will conclude seems uncertain. Nevertheless, one thing's for sure, it will be a sad day for many of us when he decides to hang up his megaphone and his 20-inch purple dildo.
I introduced around Jackie Brown a new crew member to the set, and his name is Big Jerry. And Big Jerry is a big purple dildo that's about like this and about this long.
Like this?
Yeah. Well, no. The idea is it's the second biggest dildo in the store. All right.
Yeah.
Until my most recent rewatch, I don't think I would have even considered Jackie Brown might be the worst film Tarantino's ever made, but I think that really speaks to the quality and consistency of his body of work. To me, it's a good, not quite great film, more than worthy of at least a single watch. But I'm also aware many people consider Jackie Brown to be among his very best.
What would you think of a person whose favorite film of yours was Jackie Brown? What does that mean about that person?
What does that mean? Okay, if I'm going to be snotty, I'm like, it means you don't like my movies, and that's the one that's like the least like my movie, so that's the one you like, all right? I was going to be snotty about it. It's my most sober movie. It's the one movie that doesn't take place in this kind of Quentin world.
Right.
It takes place in the real world. And the world is almost realer than real.
Tarantino is undoubtedly correct in this analysis. With the exception of his unmistakable dialogue style, violent tendencies, and the non-linear approach he takes to this film's climax, Jackie Brown is, no racist pun intended, the black sheep of his catalogue. The film is, of course, an adaptation of Elmore Leonard's 1992 novel Rum Punch, which I'm still yet to read, although I understand many people believe it to be a more than worthy adaptation. Though the core relationships and plot points from the source material are supposedly mostly retained, one of the most significant alterations from the book was Tarantino's decision to change the race of the main character, an attempt to root this film in black American culture.
I have a vast interest in race in this country, in the way blacks and whites have dealt with each other in particularly these last 100 years. And it's a theme that I can't get away from. I always keep going back to it. But it's such an important theme in America, and such an ignored theme for the most part in Hollywood movies, that I don't really need much more of a theme as long as I have that one.
I suppose now would be an appropriate time to mention the numerous claims people have made that Tarantino is either obsessed or attempting to appropriate and exploit the African American community. Alongside his prolific and essentially unparalleled history of using the N-word in his films, and unfortunately publicly saying the word more than a few times himself.
When I see Quentin Tarantino, I'm gonna take this fist and I'm gonna put it right in his mouth where he say,
Really?
Really.
This is just one of the multiple points of controversy Tarantino has invited across the span of his career. In Jackie Brown, he seemed to have made the decision to change this detail with every intention of at least attempting to earnestly and authentically represent an otherwise underrepresented group of people. From my unqualified and irrelevant point of view, this is one aspect of the film where it's clear that his restraint paid off. My issue with Jackie Brown has very little to do with accusations of cultural misappropriation, and everything to do with the artificial handicap that Tarantino seems to place focus on himself in order to make it. The film often feels like the product of an artist seeking to intentionally subvert and restrict his own creative instincts, presumably in a conscious effort to widen his appeal beyond the expectations of his ever-growing audience and increasingly vocal critics, all while attempting to adapt a piece of literature he has boundless creative admiration for. Although the 6-minute monologues about seemingly superfluous but inexplicably compelling pseudo-philosophical musings remain, some dialogue in the film does feel distinct from the rest of his catalogue. I think this is particularly interesting given that Tarantino's repeatedly cited Elmore Leonard as potentially his single greatest influence. Pam Grier's understated but captivating performance as the titular protagonist, and Samuel L. Jackson's turn as the disgusting, despicable pimp antagonist Ordell are unforgettable standouts even among the roster of talent across Tarantino's filmography. While I really enjoy the subtlety of Robert Forster's performance as Max Cherry, the chemistry between him and Jackie Brown has always left a lot to be desired for me. Tarantino is usually capable of squeezing a great performance out of anyone, besides himself. But the supporting cast, including the likes of Michael Keaton and Robert De Niro, don't really have much of a chance to leave an impact. With such a lengthy runtime, this is the only one of his films that I find to be a bit of a slog to get through. I've distilled this down to 3 mostly subjective problems: the intentional but undeniably slow pacing, the lack of investment I feel for the relationship between Jackie Brown and Max Cherry, and the execution of this film's final climactic set piece, which is of course edited from 3 separate perspectives. Having seen the later work from filmmakers directly inspired by the likes of Tarantino, such as the team behind Better Call Saul, it's obvious Jackie Brown has had an understated but not insignificant influence. There are many things I appreciate about the film, but I think it was ultimately Tarantino's decision to restrict Jackie Brown to his version of the real world that's realer than real, which makes Jackie Brown his least appealing film to me. 7 out of 10. Being the insufferable person I am, I distinctly remember a time where I would have glibly claimed that Death Proof was Tarantino's only mistake. Since then, I've rewatched the film multiple times, both on its own and alongside Planet Terror as part of the original Grindhouse double feature format, and it's safe to say my opinion has shifted in the exact opposite direction to the man himself.
Death Proof has got to be the worst movie I ever make. And that's not and for a left-handed movie, that wasn't so bad. All right, you know, so if that's the worst I ever get, I'm good. But I do think one of those out-of-touch, old, limp, flaccid dick movies cost you 3 good movies, as far as your rating is concerned.
I think it's fair to say Tarantino's sentiments are largely a reflection of Death Proof's uniquely divisive reception. Unlike the typical controversies that surround Quentin Tarantino's films, accusations of racism and the glorification of violence, I don't think the majority of this film's vocal critics were approaching their critiques from a position the writer-director would consider to be bad faith. For many, there was a genuine sense of confusion around why, arguably at the peak of his own creative liberty, he would choose to avoid rescaling the metaphorical mountain, and instead make a comparatively simplistic B-movie with Robert Rodriguez.
2 adrenaline-fueled roller coasters. 1 ticket to ride. Planet Terror and Death Proof.
Death Proof's defenders, a group I would consider myself to belong to, consistently reiterate that the film is largely misunderstood, but it's difficult to argue against the fact it has the most niche appeal of anything he's directed. Part exploitation movie, part insane action thriller, what makes the film truly special, even outside of its original format, is its genre-bending structure, an extremely enjoyable performance from Kurt Russell, switching from genuinely terrifying to pathetic and hilarious, and the phenomenal stunt work of the second half. Owed to the incredible stunt coordinator, his team, and of course the multi-talented stunt actress turned lead, Zoe Bell. The film's final act is utterly insane, and the entire chase section deserves to be in any conversation for the most exciting car chase action sequence to ever be put on film, somehow only becoming more impressive and anxiety-inducing as you learn more about the way it was filmed and how much was really on the line.
Real car, real shit, Apple.
You're unfamiliar with 70s exploitation movies, and as long as you go into this film expecting something slightly dumber and more focused on its action than Tarantino's other films, Death Proof will likely be a very entertaining experience for you. It's almost like in a single effort, Tarantino was able to make the film that Robert Rodriguez had attempted to make for his entire career. 7 out of 10.
I
Kill Bill Volume 2 is a slower, more dramatic, and far more traditional Tarantino film than its predecessor. This was the most difficult entry on this list to try and succinctly articulate my thoughts on, perhaps because it's the only one that requires you to have seen another 2-hour film before. Many people, Tarantino included, consider Kill Bill to be just one film, or to use a tenuous analogy, two sides of the same double album.
I mean, you have so much of your life tied up in this movie. I mean, how do you change the gears and move on? You should have got some more Kill Bill to do. I guess somewhere if you're doing the DVD thing. And it's just amazing. I mean, it's your star.
Definitely is. That's one of the structural things about putting the movie up to the treats them like these. And then Volume 2 gets to know more, all right? Good deal. Good for you. Thanks a lot.
So I wasn't really caring enough to argue one way or the other. They were obviously released as two separate films for a reason, and each respectively have so many distinctive qualities that it's likely most people have a preference between the two. I'm not nearly as familiar with classic martial arts films or samurai cinema as I would like to be, and I'm sure if I were, then I would only further appreciate the differences. What makes Volume 2 so great is the depth it provides to emotions to its characters, and the way that the additional context reframes, even humanises the inherent facts of the story. Despite the film playing much more within the writing director's wheelhouse, framing its narrative in a way more pivotal to the compelling action, the sequences of with the frenetic pace and unrelenting action of the first film. I think the fact that there's only really one great fight in the film is evidence enough that it's got a great element of film entertainment value. Beatrix Kiddo becomes exponentially more interesting and empathetic through her development in Volume 2. Even with the additional context I would argue that none of the characters in this film are as interesting or as compelling for that. The two sequences that I always look back on with the most reverence are the extended midpoint flashback after Beatrix is buried alive, and the final segment of the film, taking place in Bill's house. Both are respectively subversive, unforgettable sequences that represent perhaps the most dramatic shift in tone from Kill Bill 1, making it easy to appreciate the scope of what Tarantino was able to pull off here. As a complete package, I can understand why Tarantino's most proud of the work of Kill Bill, but I'm not sure the extended runtime of the second film is highly justified, and my investment in these now humanised but still comic-esque characters can only go so far. Reservoir Dogs is, of course, Tarantino's first feature film, unless you count My Best Friend's Birthday from 1987, coincidentally the same year that City on Fire, the Hong Kong film that inspired Reservoir Dogs, was released.
There's a whole story about the Hong Kong movie City on Fire. It's very, very different from my movie. The section that they say I took, I did take from it, all right? Absolutely I took from it, all right? But it's a very different movie. They actually talked to the director, Ringo Lam. He goes, wow, Tarantino took the last 10 minutes of my movie, made an entire movie about it.
The film is undeniable proof of Quentin Tarantino's knowledge and love for the art form. Any technical shortcomings are a predictable and unavoidable byproduct of this being a relatively low-budget feature, but even from a directing perspective, it's remarkably well made. It seems as if this is the perfect size sandbox. And there are countless camera and editing choices that work together to create such a singular experience. It would have been a tragedy if it had never been produced in this way. There are, undeniably, a few moments in Reservoir Dogs where it becomes clear not only that this was Tarantino's first real attempt at directing a feature, but that there were significant limitations placed upon him. Thankfully, this is a film that is fully aware of its own limitations, and manages to turn its small-scale, self-contained nature into a genuinely positive trait.
I was selling True Romance. I was going to get like $30,000, and I'd never had $30,000 in my life. I was the minimum wage. I was only like making like $150 a week. So that was the kind of plan. Well, I finally got some money, then I'll shoot on 15mm, this thing that I can shoot in like in a Muppet show, which was Reservoir Dogs. But I showed it to the guy who ended up becoming my partner on this film, Warren Bender, and he was like, Quentin, it's a tricky script. I mean, we should actually get real money to make a real movie.
I could confidently say that the heights of some of the previous films on this list are able to reach far greater than the original visions, but there is just something so unique and captivating about the simplicity of this film, and the gradual escalation of tension and intrigue, assisted in no small part by the impeccable characterization of the core members of this cast. This is Tarantino's shortest and simplest screenplay, and although many have been keen to point out that this was by no means the first heist film to take place after the heist, Reservoir Dogs still continues to feel unique, well over 3 decades after its release. You could also make an argument that it's his tightest, and certainly his least self-indulgent screenplay, and for as many elements that may have been lifted from other works, I'm not surprised that the film felt like a breath of fresh air for anyone not appalled by the abhorrence of violence that takes place in Singing Scream. With the exception of Dexter, whenever Tarantino decides to insert himself into his own films, Reservoir Dogs contains the only instances of awkward and cheesy line delivery throughout everything he's made. Again, this feels like something that Tarantino wouldn't allow in any of the films he followed, and it's fairly obvious this was his first real experience directing professional actors. However, any nitpicks that I have are completely outweighed by the strength of its best performances, particularly from Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, and Harvey Keitel.
You're gonna be okay! You're gonna be okay!
The tense, hyper-paranoid atmosphere Tarantino created in the script is only realised by the scale of talent on display in this film. But despite its relative simplicity and Tarantino's unproven track record, I'm not surprised that people would have been so immediately drawn to this material.
He gave us the script and I read it and I thought, God, this is good. This is an incredible script, amazing writing, great characters, and I became this guy's friend.
For as much as I generally am not a fan when Tarantino acts in his own films, I can't think of anyone who would have been more befitting to deliver the iconic monologue in the opening diner scene, except maybe Samuel L. Jackson. It's not a unique observation, but the manner in which this entire sequence has aged to essentially serve as the prelude to his entire body of work, with both the deceptively considered rhythm and the pop culture-centered dialogue that draws us into his unique style of filmmaking, displays a level of self-awareness that I don't think is really matched by any other writer-director. 8 out of 10. The first Tarantino film that I was old enough to see in the cinema when it was released was The Hateful Eight. After this, it became clear to me why Tarantino's always viewed this as the essential way to watch his movies. Not that he's particularly unique in this opinion.
It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
Nevertheless, I think the genre this film sits in, as well as the fact I got to see it with a packed crowd, meant that when I finally got around to rewatching the film on my own, the experience could never come close to living up to that. Tarantino has said that Reservoir Dogs was one of 3 primary sources of inspiration for The Hateful Eight. Yes, he really said this unironically, and I think it really shows, even if there are some fairly stark differences between the two. Despite this film being far more layered and complicated than Reservoir Dogs, I think The Hateful Eight is definitely less rewatchable, which I would attribute to its length and slightly clunky structure. This film is extremely slow, but obviously very intentional with its pacing, and does an amazing job at gradually but meticulously escalating tensions between these characters, until things reach a sort of climactic reveal at about 2/3 of the way through.
So, do you intend to murder me based on a far-fetched nigger theory?
After this point, the film flashes back, and unfortunately can't help but crumble under the weight of itself, finding it very difficult to ever recapture the dramatic and suspenseful heights of the first act. The film is Tarantino's second bottle movie, but with the highly extended runtime and his extensive experience as a writer and filmmaker, this is arguably the ultimate showcase of Tarantino's ability to develop complex character dynamics and build layer upon layer of tension through dialogue. This is not to take anything away from his ability to direct, which at this point in his career was evidently impeccable. Unfortunately, for as meticulous as the plotting may be, and as beautiful as this film looks, the choice that Tarantino made to suddenly stop the action and literally cut his own narration into this film was the kind of self-indulgent mistake that holds The Hateful Eight back from being something amazing, at least when you aren't viewing it in a roadshow format with intermissions.
15 minutes ago, Major Warren shot General Smithers in front of everybody, while Major Warren was captivating the crowd with tales of black dicks and white mouths. Somebody poisoned the crime.
Some may think it's unfair to judge a film so dependent on its big reveal moment by its longevity and rewatchability, but for a film so full of incredible performances, beautiful production design and stunning cinematography, I just wish Tarantino had found a way to sustain this tension for longer. 8 out of 10. Despite the many tonal differences and an intentionally more detached focus on the emotional journey of its protagonist, Kill Bill Volume 1 is an immeasurably more entertaining film than its sequel. Again, I'm obviously unfamiliar with probably at least 99% of the works that would form the inspiration for Kill Bill, but I'm still yet to see anything that remotely comes close to capturing the explosive, disorienting style of editing or the unrelenting energy of this film.
I hadn't seen Kill Bill Volume 1, I think, in a couple of years. I'd seen Kill Bill Volume 2, I'd screened it just for myself on film, but Kill Bill Volume 1 I hadn't, and I just noticed like in 15 minutes it was going to be coming on like, you know, Showtime 2 or something. I thought, well, you know, I'll watch the beginning, I'll watch it through the opening credits. God damn if I didn't watch that whole motherfucking thing. From beginning to the fucking end. I mean, right to the very end. I felt very, very gratified.
Kill Bill Volume 1 is incredibly economical with its half an hour shorter runtime, and for the most part, it's a cathartic, bonkers experience from start to finish. While there are still memorable lines of dialogue throughout Volume 1, this is a far more visceral and visual experience than anything he'd made before, and proof that if Tarantino wanted to strictly do an action movie, even without the crutch that many people might consider his dialogue to be, he can still do it to a higher standard than almost any other action director working in the genre today. I suppose the one part of the film that I've always found to be difficult to watch is the entire sequence with Beatrix in the hospital. This sequence stands in stark contrast to the thrill that comes from watching the bride tear hundreds of goons to pieces, or the weight of seeing her finally go toe-to-toe with the film's main antagonist.
Why the need for so much gruesome, graphic violence? Why not let us imagine
Because it's so much fun, Chad. Get it?
Oh, really? Okay, I'd like to see you walk down the street and get attacked by some kids who've just seen
To be charitable to Tarantino, he clearly believes in speaking through his work, and I don't think he should necessarily be required to consistently justify himself in this context, particularly to a person as bad-faith as Jan. There have been countless essays and articles of varying validity that discuss the dichotomy of violence Tarantino presents, and I don't think it's fair to disregard the opinion of anyone who feels that his films lean too far into exploitation or gratuitous violence against historically oppressed groups of people, seemingly just as a genre-driven tool. I personally feel Tarantino always at least attempts to justify this kind of content as a means to amplify the eventual cathartic payoff of the victim of violence becoming the perpetrator, which I guess is arguably the main purpose of exploitation films. But this will always be a step too far for many. Justifiable or not, the deaths of each person in the film are so much more satisfying because of how abhorrent their on-screen actions are. The only thing that prevents me from placing Volume 1 any higher on this list is, incidentally, because it lacks the depth of characterization that the sequel, and the next 4 films on this list, at least attempt to possess. But from an action and entertainment standpoint, it's very difficult not to be completely floored by Kill Bill. And with the last 30 minutes, I would argue Tarantino has more than lived up to his intention to create one of the most insane fight sequences ever put to film. 8 out of 10.
Wealth can solve any problem.
I don't think it's unfair or even a negative remark to say Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Quentin Tarantino's most self-indulgent film. Never before has he so confidently played with audience reaction and expectation, waiting until the last 20 minutes of a 2.5-hour film to finally deliver on the anticipation and dread that underscores every previous moment, even as ridiculous and hilarious as things might get.
I'm a conductor, and the audience is my orchestra. I've done the movie. Now I'm going to show you a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to control your reactions, and I'm going to manipulate your reactions.
I was going to see whether you're going to use the word manipulate. You're not afraid of that.
I got enough. That's my job. You're an audience member. I'm there to monkey with you. That is definitely the job. Okay, laugh, laugh, laugh. Stop laughing. Stop laughing. Stop laughing. No laughing. No laughing. Laugh. Alright.
This is something he's spoken at length about, and seeing this film for the first time in the way that I did, he played me like a fiddle. Given my history with the director and the experience I had seeing it in the cinema, I genuinely adored Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when I saw it for the first time. The film is undeniably entertaining and will be endlessly rewatchable, at the very least thanks to its humour, for many of Tarantino's existing fans.
Fucking hippie motherfuckers.
As a comedy and an entertaining experience to watch with friends, it's practically flawless. It might be kind of a weird compliment, but this is one of those perfect films to just put on in the background and dip in and out of, knowing that you'll see a funny line or a hilarious and well-directed scene anytime you might look up.
You want me to look like a hippie?
Goddamn
Farewell, friend of the Brummels.
fucking hippies came up here to smoke dope on a dark road, huh?
Judging from the many interviews, articles, and the novelization he created for the film, which is soon to be adapted by David Fincher, it's clear he had an overabundance of material for these characters, arguably going far above and beyond what was required for the film itself. For the main cast, I think it definitely pays off, and even with such recognizable actors, these performances are so easy to get lost in.
Quentin, you have put Margot Robbie, a very talented actress, actor, in your film. She was in with Leonardo in Wolf of Wall Street, I, Tonya. This is a person with a great deal of acting talent, and yet you haven't really given her many lines in the movie. And I wondered, I guess that was a deliberate choice on your part, and I just wanted to know why that was, that we don't hear her actually speaking very much. And Margot, I wanted you to also comment about being in the film in this part.
Well, I just reject your hypotheses.
I guess it's only on a purely dramatic level that I've come to appreciate Once Upon a Time in Hollywood slightly less as time's gone on. What makes the meandering pacing at times difficult to justify on repeated viewings is the fact that all of the dread and anticipation that underscored my first experience of the film have been completely lost at this point for me. I guess this is because the events we were initially anticipating, that of course tragically happened in real life, were never going to happen at all in this universe. This was never that type of film to begin with, even if Tarantino successfully tricked us all into thinking it would be.
What the fuck? Jesus Christ!
Though its longevity will likely be far more extensive for most people than The Hateful Eight, like that film, an entire seemingly essential dynamic from your initial experience is no longer present when you know where the story eventually goes. Nevertheless, I believe that this shift, regardless of how premeditated it may have been, is why so many view this film as an example of Tarantino finally maturing as a filmmaker, at least until he decided to pull out the rug from under those people at the very end. 8 out of 10. Django Unchained could very nearly have been a masterpiece. The heights this film is able to reach, both from a dramatic and cinematic standpoint, are easily among Tarantino's very best work, which is why it deserves to be so close to the top of my list.
I like the way you die, boy.
He is a rambunctious sword, ain't he?
For more than a few reasons, over 100 of them in fact, this was his most controversial film to date.
The thing that I found interesting about Django was that it's trying to be a story, trying to kind of be an evolutionary story of a black hero in antebellum South. It's not Django who really has the most powerful elements within the film, and so I found that there was an odd racial calculus that was used in creating the structure in which the film takes place.
I looked at the same movie, and all I heard was the word nigga.
I really didn't have issue with the word, because it's antebellum South. It's the South. The word was used. That's historical. That's that's accurate to the extent that we know.
Whether or not you believe it was a suitable concept in the first place, the film more than lives up to its aspirations to pay homage to Sergio Leone's very best spaghetti westerns. In terms of the scale of its story, Tarantino's also never aimed higher. The acting in this film is consistently phenomenal. From Jamie Foxx and Kerry Washington, everyone does a great job. DiCaprio and Jackson in particular give arguably the best performances of their entire careers.
Who the hell you calling a snowball, Paul Spore? I'll snatch your black ass off that nag down here in the mud so fast. Steven.
Even as the film with arguably the strongest first two acts in his entire catalogue, the final act of this film is where things almost fall apart. Most people agree that Django is too long, but I only ever feel this once Calvin Candy and King Schultz are killed off, and I remember that there are still over 30 minutes left of this film. The final shootout is an incredible and explosive set piece, and it's extremely satisfying to watch this now fully formed, battle-hardened hero completely blow a family of slavers to pieces, both to take revenge and ultimately to rescue his wife. The problem is that once we've had the unbelievable release of tension that comes with Calvin Candy's death, it's like the air has been stolen from this film's tyres. The choice to try and switch back to a more comical side as we shift to a band of Australian slave traders, led by Quentin Tarantino himself, feels like a bizarre tonal mistake.
That's happening at the moment. What is the weirdest or most interesting note or letter you've had from a fan?
I think the response to the writer-director's cameo in this one is probably the most negative feedback he's ever received for an acting performance, and it's likely this was the final nail in the coffin for the obligatory cameos that used to be a staple right across all of his films. Regardless, I think Django Unchained is a must-watch, and comfortably sits in the number 3 spot for me. 9 out of 10. Despite the fact Inglourious Basterds can be distilled down to a number of extended dramatic table conversations, which is of course a defining motif throughout all of his films, this was easily his biggest project to date, both in terms of the size of its production and the magnitude of its subject matter, characterised by Tarantino himself as his attempt to rescale the metaphorical mountain after the comparatively small scale of his previous film Death Proof and the divisive critical and audience response it received.
The German will be sickened by us. The German will talk about us. And the German will fear us. Each and every man under my command owes me 100 net scalps. And I want my scalp.
It's far from a novel opinion, but I continue to assert that Inglourious Basterds' opening scene showcases the greatest writing in Tarantino's entire catalogue, even when there are somehow multiple scenes within this film that also come very close. When people talk about Inglourious Basterds, they will seldom forget to at least mention Christoph Waltz's Hans Landa, and for good reason. At risk of breaking the hyperbole meter, this is legitimately one of the best performances I've ever seen, and was beyond worthy of the Best Supporting Actor Oscar, as well as all of the other accolades he received. And though Waltz may be the most crucial piece of the puzzle, the greatness of Inglourious Basterds most certainly doesn't stop there. Shoshana, played by Melanie Laurent, is the closest thing this film has to a protagonist, and I think both her character and performance are extremely underrated among Tarantino's usually bold, brazen archetypes. Similarly contrasting the Bastard's darkly comical, cartoonishly ultra-violent but endlessly cathartic simplicity, the type of vengeance Shoshana seeks is deeper and more relatably human. Assisted in no small part by these incredible performances, where Inglourious Basterds' genius lies is in the balance of its tone, the sense of unease and gradual building of tension that Tarantino was able to play around with so confidently in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was, I think, first mastered in this film. As a result, almost every scene with Hans Landa, Shoshana, Michael Fassbender, or almost everyone outside of the Bastards themselves is excruciating to watch.
3 Gläser.